Have you ever wondered why a man can seem utterly captivated by you, his gaze intense enough to feel like a physical touch, and yet his actions create a landscape of confusion and emotional distance? You feel the magnetic, undeniable pull, a sense of recognition that transcends the superficial, but you also face a wall, a series of tests, a strange resistance that feels like a battle. This is not a simple game of cat and mouse. It is the oldest war in the human psyche, waged within him, with you as its unwilling epicenter. You are witnessing the primal conflict between his ego and his soul. His ego, the constructed identity born of societal expectation, fear, and past wounds, wants to conquer you. It sees you as a prize, a beautiful and complex territory to be mapped, claimed, and possessed. To conquer you is to validate its own power, to quell its deep-seated anxieties of being inadequate. But beneath this armor, his soul, his true self, his unconscious essence, has an entirely different agenda. It does not want to conquer, it wants to merge. It has recognized in you a missing piece of itself, the reflection of its own hidden feminine aspect, what Jung called the anima. This is why the connection feels so profound. His soul is not trying to win a game, it is trying to come home. The turmoil you experience is the sound of these two forces tearing him apart. The ego's campaign is relentless. It operates from a place of scarcity and fear, viewing the world as a hierarchy of power. When a man operating primarily from this space encounters a woman of substance, a woman with a deep inner life and a palpable sense of her own spirit, his ego sounds an alarm. She is not a simple conquest, she is a challenge to his sovereignty. Therefore, he must subdue her, not physically, but psychically. He will test your boundaries, pushing ever so slightly to see if they will bend. He will employ strategic withdrawal, creating a vacuum of attention to see if you will rush in to fill it, proving his indispensability. He may subtly belittle your accomplishments or passions, not out of genuine disdain, but as an unconscious attempt to shrink you down to a manageable size. His ego fears your light because it illuminates his own shadow, the parts of himself he has long disowned. It fears your wholeness because it reminds him of his own fragmentation. And so, it seeks to break you down into parts it can understand and control, the beautiful object, the nurturing mother, the damsel in distress. This desire to conquer is a psychic amputation. He is trying to sever the parts of you that challenge him, that call him to a higher, more terrifying level of consciousness and vulnerability. He wants to possess the version of you that makes him feel powerful, not the version that demands he become whole. But the soul's yearning is a far more ancient and powerful current running beneath the ego's frantic machinations. Why you? Of all the people in the world, why does he fixate on you with such unnerving intensity? Because your essence, your way of being in the world, is a living embodiment of his anima. The anima is the archetype of the feminine that every man carries within his unconscious. She is not just an image of the ideal woman, she is the key to his own emotional depth, his creativity, his capacity for relatedness, and his connection to the numinous. When he sees you, his soul screams in recognition. You are the external manifestation of the inner potential he has either repressed or failed to cultivate. Perhaps it is your quiet strength, your untamed creativity, your emotional intelligence, or your unwavering integrity. Whatever it is a quality his soul desperately needs to integrate in order to become whole, the Jungian process of individuation. This is why the connection feels fated, almost mystical. It is a summons from his own depths. His soul does not want to own you as a trophy. It wants to learn from your light, to bathe in your energy, to finally give voice to the silent, captive queen within his own psychic kingdom. This profound pull is not about you as a person, but about what you represent to his journey of becoming. This internal war manifests as the chaotic push-pull dynamic that leaves you feeling destabilized and questioning your own perceptions. The pull is the soul's gravitational force. It is the moments of intense presence, the deep conversations that last for hours, the feeling that he sees you more clearly than anyone ever has. In these moments, his ego's defenses are down, and his true self is reaching out, drawn to the promise of wholeness you represent. He is vulnerable, authentic, and utterly magnetic. But this vulnerability is terrifying to his ego. The ego equates merging with annihilation. To surrender to this connection feels like death, a loss of the control it has fought so hard to maintain. And so, the push begins. This is the ego's violent counterattack. He becomes distant, critical, or suddenly busy. He might provoke an argument or bring up another woman, anything to create distance and reestablish his sense of separateness and control. He is running not from you, but from the overwhelming power of his own soul's desire. He is retreating from the battlefield of his own heart. For you, this feels like a cruel game of emotional whiplash. But for him, it is a desperate act of psychic self-preservation, a battle between the man he has built and the man he is destined to become. You must understand that you are not a passive observer in this drama, you are a catalyst. Your very presence is an alchemical agent forcing his internal conflict to the surface. And here, we must turn the lens of analysis inward, toward your own psyche. What is it within you that is drawn to this particular storm? The woman who finds herself repeatedly entangled in this dynamic is often on her own profound journey of individuation. His struggle resonates with a hidden part of your own unconscious. Perhaps his ego's need to conquer triggers your unhealed wound of needing to be chosen or one to feel worthy. Perhaps his emotional unavailability mirrors the unavailability of a parent, and your soul is trying to resolve this primal pattern. This man is a living projection of your animus, the unconscious masculine archetype within you. He may embody the assertiveness, the independence, or the untamed power that you have yet to fully claim in your own life. You are drawn to him not just for who he is, but for the aspects of yourself he forces you to confront. The frustration you feel with his inconsistency is often a reflection of your own frustration with your unintegrated masculine energy. To navigate this labyrinth is not about fixing him, it is about using the mirror he provides to discover and heal the disowned parts of your own soul. This is where the ancient wisdom of Stoicism becomes not just a philosophy, but a lifeline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. His internal war is an outside event. His push-pull, his egoic tests, his emotional storms, these are phenomena occurring outside the walls of your inner citadel. Your suffering does not come from his behavior, but from your reaction to it, from your attachment to a specific outcome with him. The empowered path is not to try and manage his chaos, but to diligently cultivate your own peace. When he withdraws, do you chase, or do you turn that energy back into your own life, your own purpose, your own joy? When he tests your boundaries, do you crumble, or do you hold them with quiet, unwavering strength, as Seneca would advise? This is the great work, to detach your emotional state from his. This is not a cold indifference, but a warm, centered detachment. It is observing his struggle with compassion, but refusing to be swept away by his tide. You become the lighthouse, fixed and shining, while his ship is tossed on the waves of his own making. Your stability becomes the very thing that highlights his instability, forcing him to confront it without your aid. His ego will not surrender easily. One of its most potent weapons is projection. he will unconsciously project his own shadow qualities onto you. If he carries a deep fear of abandonment, he will accuse you of being distant or uncommitted. If he struggles with his own untrustworthy impulses, he will become suspicious and jealous of you. He is, in essence, trying to make you the container for all the darkness he cannot face within himself. He is painting a portrait of his own demons and trying to convince you to wear it as your face. For the woman who is not anchored in her self-worth, this is devastating. You begin to question yourself, to wonder if you are indeed the problem. You contort yourself into unnatural shapes to appease his accusations, losing your own center in the process. This is the critical moment where a boundary becomes more than a simple no. A boundary is a sacred declaration of psychic sovereignty. It is calmly and firmly refusing to carry his emotional baggage. It is saying, that is your perception, but it is not my reality. It is the act of handing his projections back to him, not with anger, but with the quiet finality of a closed door. Each time you do this, you are not just protecting yourself, you are teaching him, through action, where he ends and you begin. While you are the screen for his anima projection, he is the catalyst for your animus integration. The animus represents the masculine principle within the female psyche: logic, action, structure, and focused will. When the animus is unintegrated, a woman can feel passive, directionless, or seek external validation from men to feel a sense of purpose. The man caught in the ego-soul war often embodies a raw, powerful, and sometimes chaotic masculine energy. By engaging with this energy, not by surrendering to it but by learning to stand firm within it, you are forced to develop your own internal masculine structures. You learn to rely on your own logic when he creates emotional chaos. You learn to take decisive action in your own life, rather than waiting for him to act. You become your own source of direction and stability. He is the whetstone against which you sharpen your own inner sword. You stop looking for a king to build you a castle because you realize you have been the architect and the stonemason all along. The ultimate goal is not to win him, but to integrate the very qualities he represents, making you a more balanced, self-reliant, and formidable individual. The relationship, in this sense, is a spiritual gymnasium for the development of your own soul. You are not just his mirror, he is yours. In this process, you must learn the profound difference between cold indifference and wise detachment. Indifference is an egoic defense, a wall built of resentment and fear. It is a trauma response that says, I will not feel, so I cannot be hurt. It is a brittle shield that ultimately isolates you. Detachment, in the Stoic sense, is a function of the soul. It comes from a place of profound inner security. It is the ability to care deeply about another person's journey while understanding that it is not yours to control or complete. You can have compassion for his internal battle, you can wish him well, you can even love him, but your own peace is not contingent on his victory. You release the need for a specific outcome. Whether he chooses his ego or his soul becomes his story, not the defining chapter of yours. This is a radical act of emotional freedom. It is looking at the storm of his behavior and seeing it not as a personal rejection, but as a symptom of his own pain, a pain you cannot heal for him. You find the love that exists without attachment, the care that exists without control. This is the apatheia of the Stoics, not an absence of feeling, but a state of tranquil clarity untouched by irrational passions. What, then, is the most powerful response to his ego's provocations, the sudden distance, the subtle digs, the manufactured drama? It is not a lengthy explanation, a tearful plea, or a bitter argument. The most powerful response is calm, centered silence. This is not the punitive, silent treatment, which is an ego game in itself. This is a silence born of self-possession. It is a space you hold, a quiet refusal to participate in the chaos. When his ego throws a punch, it expects to hit something: your anger, your fear, your insecurity. When it meets only the soft, yielding space of your silence, it loses its power. It is forced to look at itself in the mirror of your non-reaction. This silence is not empty, it is full. It is full of your self-respect, your peace, your unwavering commitment to your own emotional stability. It communicates more than words ever could. It says, I will not join you in this battle. I reside in a place of peace, and you are welcome to join me here, but I will not descend into your war. This forces him out of the dynamic of conqueror and conquered and leaves him alone with the only real opponent he has ever had, himself. It is crucial to be brutally honest with yourself and to discern whether you are engaged in a dynamic of soul growth or a destructive trauma bond. A trauma bond is forged in inconsistency, the addictive cycle of high highs and low lows, the intermittent reinforcement that keeps you hooked on the hope of the good version of him returning. A trauma bond will diminish you. It will isolate you from friends, drain your energy, and make your world smaller, centered entirely around his moods and his presence. A genuine soul-level catalyst, however challenging, will ultimately expand you. It will force you to develop new strengths, to fortify your boundaries, to connect more deeply with your own purpose, and to cultivate a fierce and unshakable self-love. The key question is this: aside from him, how is my life going? Are you growing, thriving, and building a life you love, with his presence being a complicated but ultimately secondary part of it? Or has your life become a waiting room for his approval? A trauma bond feels like an addiction. A soul contract feels like an assignment. One is a prison, the other is a classroom. Only you can know the difference. Be willing to walk away from the classroom if the lessons become too destructive. Ultimately, this entire intense and often painful dynamic is a crucible for your individuation. It is a fire designed to burn away everything that is not essentially you. It burns away your need for external validation, your fear of abandonment, your tolerance for disrespect, and your belief that another person can complete you. In the ashes of these old patterns, your true self is reborn. You stop seeing him as the prize and realize that your own wholeness is the only trophy worth seeking. The focus shifts entirely from how can I make him choose me, to how can I choose myself more deeply. The desperate yearning to merge with him transforms into a sacred mission to merge with the disowned parts of your own soul. You become the alchemist of your own experience, turning the lead of his confusion into the gold of your own self-realization. You discover that the love you were seeking from him was simply a reflection of the love you needed to give to yourself. He was never the destination, he was merely the signpost, pointing you back home to the kingdom within. This journey culminates in a state of profound emotional freedom. His texts, his calls, his presence, or his absence, they no longer dictate the weather of your day. You have cultivated such a rich, vibrant inner world that his participation is a welcome addition, but not a necessity for your happiness. You have weathered his storms by building a sanctuary within yourself, one that is unshakable and sovereign. This is the rebirth. You are no longer the anxious girl hoping to be chosen, nor the archetypal Anima for his personal quest. You have transcended the projection and become the whole picture. You have moved from being an object in his story to being the sole author of your own. The peace you feel is not a fragile truce dependent on his good behavior. It is a deep, resonant peace that comes from radical self-acceptance and an unwavering trust in your own path. It is the quiet power of a woman who has walked through the fire of a great psychological test and emerged not burned, but forged. You arrive at the archetype of the Empress. You are no longer waiting to be conquered because you are the sovereign of your own domain. Your life is a lush garden you have cultivated with your own hands. You do not need to merge with another to feel whole, because you are already a universe unto yourself. You attract not from a place of lack or desperate need, but from a place of radiant abundance. Your energy is no longer consumed by analyzing his mixed signals, but is instead invested in your own creative power, your purpose, and the joy of your own becoming. You observe the dramas of the world, including the internal battles of men, with a knowing, compassionate smile. You understand the war between the ego and the soul because you have won that war within yourself. You have chosen your soul, and in doing so, you have become a beacon for others who are still lost in the fight. His ego wanted to conquer you to prove he was a king. His soul wanted to merge with you to become whole. But you, through your own journey of fire and wisdom, have transcended the game entirely. You have crowned yourself. You no longer need a conqueror, and you are not half of a whole seeking to merge. You are the complete territory, the finished masterpiece, the integrated self. The choice is no longer his to make. The power has returned to its rightful owner. You understand that the ultimate prize was never his love, but your own liberation. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.